learned a bunch of different cases where Beis Shammai forbids it unless it's the act is the accomplishment is done by day, and Beis Hillel permits it. One of the cases was that you're not allowed to soak ink and dyes in water, or a type of animal food, karshinim, vetch. You can't soak it in water. The Gemara asks on the top of Yudches Hamad Aleph, 4 lines down, the beginning of the Gemara, Mantana, who's the author, who's the opinion that Nasinas Mayim L'Diya Yizui Shriyasan, that putting water into the ink is considered lush. Lush is kneading. Who holds that just adding water itself is a malacha? Now, if that's the case, that adding water to this to these herbs is a malacha, the malacha of kneading, then it could be a machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel if it has to be totally done before Shabbos or not. Beis Shammai holds that if it's not done before Shabbos, then it's as if the malacha is continuing from your work on Shabbos, but it has to be a malacha. So who holds that just adding water itself is the malacha? In other words, it could be that you need to do more than that, than just adding water, than to have a malacha, and that would be to actually knead it, to mix it with your hands, and to. So Amar Rav Yosef Rabbi. Rabbi Yosef says that it's the opinion of Rabbi Danasi. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Echad neisin es hakemach. One person puts flour in. Echad neisin, supposed to say l'seicha, I think. L'seicha es hamayim. One person puts in the water. Ha'achron chayev. Just putting in the water makes him chayev divrei Rabbi. That's the words of Rabbi. Okay, so we have an opinion that adding water is the malacha of kneading. Rabbi Yossi says, Ein chayev ad she'gavel. Rabbi Yossi says no. Rabbi Yossi argues with Rabbi.
Rabbi, can you mute everybody else? We're hearing static from others.
Okay. Rabbi Yossi argues with Rabbi. It's Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda. That makes more sense. Actually, it doesn't matter, but Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda would be Rabbi's contemporary. And he argues, and he says that it's not considered kneading just by adding water. You have to knead it. You have to get your hands in it and squish it around. Okay, so from the fact that our Mishnah says that Beis Shammai holds you're not allowed to soak, and Beis Hillel holds you are allowed to, that must be that it's just the adding water that's the malacha. That follows Rabbi's opinion, and in that there would be a machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Amalei Abaya. Abaya says, "V'dil ma'ad kan lekam Rabbi Yossi ela bekemach debar gibelhu." How do you know that in our case it's only going according to Rabbi? Maybe our case is talking about these inks, these herbs, and over there, just adding water is the malacha of lush. But in cases where you actually need to knead it, to mix it around because it's a fine powder, over there you need to do gibel. So, in other words, the brisa that we quoted where there's a machlekes, Rabbi and Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda, that's talking about where there's flour. And over there, there's a machlekes. But if it's not flour, then it's considered kneading, even with just adding water, according to everyone. Aval diyoid labar gibelhu, but ink, which is not gibel, is kneaded with. It doesn't turn into a paste. Ema l'chayev, you should be chayev even by just adding water. The Gemara says like sal kadaita. You can't say it like that. Really, the machlekes applies to herbs as well. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. One person puts in ash. Another person puts in water. You see? You're chayev for adding. This isn't the proof yet. This is the first half of it. You're chayev for adding water to ash. And ash doesn't turn into a paste. Divrei Rabbi, that's the opinion of Rabbi. And Rabbi Yehuda, Machi Gaval. Oh, here we have Rabbi Yehuda clearly. Rabbi Yehuda says, yeah, they actually have to knead it. Okay, so we see that it's not the flour that requires the kneading. It's always that it requires kneading, according to Rabbi Yehuda, even if it's not something that's going to turn into a paste. Yeah, so adding water to anything that's anything that's going to sit there is going to be a problem of kneading. I guess a little bit of water. A lot of water would just be like instant coffee, but a little bit of water to make that mixture would be kneading. So a problem of oatmeal, making instant oatmeal on Shabbos. People think, oh, it's cooking. It's not. The issue isn't cooking, because for that you can get away with klisheni or whatever. But there's a problem of kneading. If you turn it into a paste, then that becomes a problem. The Gemara says, 1 second. You just said your proof was from ash. Your proof is from ash. Maybe when it says ash, it says the word afer, but it actually means afar. And afar turns into a paste. It turns into mud. And over there, there's an issue where you have to where Rabbi Yehuda says that you have to knead it. But in other cases, actually ash or herbs, that would be chayiv even without kneading it. V'dilmi my afer afar, the bar gibelhu. Maybe when it says afer with an aleph, it really means afar with an ayin. And they're interchangeable and they get confused a little bit. So how do you know that there's really a leniency by afer? Maybe the leniency is only by afar. The Gemara says, Vahatanya, you can't say that. Afer, Vahatanya afar. We have two brises. One says afer, one says afar. That means that afer must be really afer. The Gemara says, Vahatanya afar. The Gemara says, Midi gabi adadi tanya. Does it say both of those brises in the same place where we know that they're actually different? Maybe those brises were said by two different versions of the same brisa. In other words, could be Reb Chia said it afer, Rabbi Shia said it afar, but they're really referring to the same thing. You can't prove it to me that they're two different cases and both of them have the same machlekes, because it could be that it's really the same case and they weren't said together and it's a different edition. They both mean afar, and over there Rabbi Yehuda holds that if you don't need it, then it's not considered the malacha of lash. But in other cases, in actual afer or with herbs, maybe a chayiv with lash for just adding water, according to everyone. Okay, the Gemara doesn't answer this. Any questions? Or are we doing okay? Okay. Tanra Abanan. Starting the brisa. Peskim mayim lagina erev Shabbos im chashecho mismalas velechas kolayim kulay. You're allowed to open up the what's it called that waters the grass every there's a system that waters the grass.
The irrigation system.
The irrigation system.
I think here he's referring to what they call sluices.
What is that?
A sluice is a trough that's used to transport water to farm areas. I believe.
So, are you? Do I say it? Are you allowed to open the sluice? No, is that the way you say it? So you're allowed to open the valve.
A channel.
A channel. You're allowed to open a valve or a channel to let the water. You're not allowed to water grass. That's grain. That's considered either zayreya or chayrish. That's assisting the plant to grow. That's like, so you're not allowed to do that. Are you allowed to do it on Erev Shabbos and let the water continue to flow all of Shabbos? So this Brisa says you are allowed to. Erev Shabbos. You're allowed to put incense or perfume incense under clothing. This would be, you would put it on some sort of ash. And it would smoke or it would give off the smell the whole day. Are you allowed to do that? It says yes. This, you need a silversmith to discuss this. Where's Moshe? So, your gufris is sulfur, I think. And they would make pictures in silver, and then they would want the creases to turn black. The rest of it would shine. But the creases should turn black so that way you could see the picture more clearly. So they would get the creases, the indents to turn black by putting sulfur under it. And that would, I guess, tarnish that part quicker. Menichem kiler al gaba ayin. You can put a salve on the eye. V'splenis al gaba maka. Or a bandage that has a medicinal bandage on top of a wound. Erev Shabbos simchat sheichem. Misrapas ve'lachas kolim kuli. You let the healing take place the whole Shabbos. There's problems with doing medicinal medicine on Shabbos. There's certain decrees that are, you might end up grinding herbs or whatever. So everything so far was permissible until we got to this one. You can't put wheat into a water powered grinder, mill. Unless it's all going to be ground during the day. My timer, what's the reason for this? Why all of a sudden do we have an issue? All of a sudden when it comes to grinding flour. So we're going to have a machlekes Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef. And in Rabbi Yosef, we're going to have two opinions how to do this. So, Amar Rabbi says, Mnesh mashmas kol. Rabbi says that it makes noise. And that's a problem. It's not good on Shabbos to have a machine that's making noise when it's grinding. It's a zilzal for Shabbos. It's not Shabbos-dik. Amalei Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says to Rabbi V'dilma v'leima mar mishum shvisas kelim. Rabbi Yosef says, I have a better reason. Maybe because all your utensils need to be resting on Shabbos, and your mill is not resting on Shabbos. Now, this is a surprise suggestion, because Rabbi's reason seems to be much better. It's mashmas kol, and that's why we only have one instance. Rabbi Yosef, that's making a suggestion, is going to need to answer up every one of the other cases why that was allowed. He's going to create a rule that's going to require a million exceptions. And Rabbah has a rule that only has one exception, which sounds like a better answer. Taisus discusses that, but anyway, that's Rabbi Yosef's suggestion. Why don't you say that it's because of Shvisas Kalim that your utensils need to rest? In other words, just like on Shabbos, everything that you own, all your family and your slaves and the animals, everyone needs to rest on Shabbos. Also, your utensils need to rest on Shabbos. And that's why you can't have the mill that's being powered by water working. Titania, it was taught in a Brisa. Everything that I've said to you, you should guard. Rabbi Shvisas Kalim. This is coming to tell us that we have to keep. It says so even it's coming to include even your utensils need to rest. Elam Rabbi Yosef Mishum Shvisas Kalim. Rabbi Yosef takes his suggestion that he's offering to Rabbi. He says this is the pshat. It has to do with Shvisas Kalim. Okay. Bahashta, now you have a lot of explaining to do. Because if Shvisas Kalim is Aser, that your utensils need to rest on Shabbos, you can't have any utensils doing forbidden work on Shabbos. So then, why were you allowed to do all those other things? If you hold that Beis Hillel is so strict, if you're going to say that you need to, that your utensils need to rest, Dairaisa, biblically, so Gafras and Mugam my time is Shara. So why do you allow the sulfur to darken the grooves, the scratches and the silver in the picture, and the incense to perfume the clothing? Why do you allow that? Do you have your utensils are doing an act of coloring or whatever it is, smoking that, burning that incense? That shouldn't be allowed. The Gemara answers, Mishum D'lei Kavod Maisa. Over there, no, not your utensils are not doing anything. You have just utensils sitting there. There's no actual act of any of your utensils moving in any sort of fashion that's considered a malacha. They're just sitting there. So 1 second. Unin shall pishtan my time sharu. In the Mishnah, not in the case in the Brisa that we just quoted, but in the Mishnah that we learned yesterday, we said that you can take a bundle of flax that's combed and put it into the oven, and in the oven it gets white. There's some sort of reaction that takes place that turns it white. Why are you allowed to do that? The Gemara answers, Mishum D'lei Avid Maisa Umenach Naicha. You just put it there. There's nothing that's happening. You just put it there, and it happens on its own. Your oven isn't doing some turning or something. Nothing is happening. What about Mitzudas Chayav V'Oif V'Dagim? What about the traps? Obviously, something is happening in the traps. Animals are getting trapped. The Gemara answers, over there, the Kavod Maisa, my time Asharo. Why is that permissible according to Beis Hillel? You set them up before Shabbos, and it catches animals on Shabbos. So Sasam Nami Belechi V'Kukri D'lei Kavod Maisa. Those are the type of traps where you don't do anything. The animal walks in and just can't get out. Your kalim, which are those traps, did not do any motion that trapped it. They're not doing any work. The animal is what's walking in, and that's a stray animal walks in. That's not your obligation. Now things start to get a little confusing. We just took the opinion of Beis Shammai that we always understood was Beis Shammai, that holds Shvisas Kalim, that your utensils need to rest, and we applied it to Beis Hillel. We said that Beis Hillel really holds of that. Then we did all of the exceptions of why Beis Hillel holds everything was permissible if they hold that you need to have Shvisas Kalim. We said, well, those Kalim weren't doing any action. The Kalim were still. They weren't doing anything. So that's how we learned it. There's just one problem. The problem is that Rabbi Oishia says in the name of Ravasi that who holds Shvisas Kalim, it's really Beis Shammai. If that's the case, then if you notice the brisa that we just learned, Tanu Rabbanan, that brisa in the middle of our page, it does not say if it's Beis Hillel or Beis Shammai. If Beis Shammai, according to Rabbi Oishia in the name of Ravasi, if Shvisas Kalim is really only Beis Shammai's opinion, then let's go back and learn this brisa, that this brisa is really Beis Shammai's opinion. Now you have to explain it doubly. You have to get out of all of these problems in a much harder way, because Beis Shammai is more strict about Shvisas Kalim, and in the brisa you had a bunch of exceptions. How are you going to get out of that? So, and it goes like this: if you say that it's Beis Shammai, v'loy Beis Hillel, and what does Beis Shammai hold? The Beis Shammai bein kavod ma'aser bein d'loi kavod ma'aser aser. We have proof from our Mishnah. Beis Shammai said that you're not allowed to put flax in the oven before Shabbos. Beis Hillel said you are allowed to. If Beis Hillel held Shvisas Kalim is also that your kalim need to rest, your utensils need to rest on Shabbos, then we can always answer, why are you allowed to put flax in the oven? Well, your oven didn't do any action. You put it in before Shabbos, it's just sitting there. If we're going to take it that our brisa is Beis Shammai, Beis Shammai held that you were not allowed to put flax in the oven. Why? Because he holds Shvisas Kelim is Asur, even if there is no action being performed. In other words, even passively, your vessels cannot do work on Shabbos. Now, which that was what the Mishnah looked like, the whole Mishnah said everything is Asur according to Beis Shammai. Now we have a brisa that says that you're not allowed to grind flour with the water mill. That's also Beis Shammai. But what about all the exceptions? The mugmar, the incense, and the sulfur, and there was a bunch of exceptions in the brisa. So, and it's only lebeis Hillel afal gav the kavod ma'aser shari, and according to Beis Hillel, it's the opposite. Even if an action is being performed, it's permissible. So hashtadam to lebeis Shammai. According to this, now that you said according to Beis Shammai, afal gav b'le'avad ma'aser aser, even if you don't do an action, it's aser. Where did we say that? When we said that you put the flax in the oven, that was prohibited. So let's go back to our brisa. Ihachi, if so, on top of 18. Mugmar v'gafris, my time ashara Beis Shammai. Then why would Beis Shammai allow the incense and the sulfur to tarnish the silver, to do that specifically? Why would you be allowed to do that on Shabbos? What are you going to tell me? That your kalim didn't do any action? What do you mean? Beis Shammai holds it's asur even if there is no action. According to Rabbi Amar Rabashi. In other words, we could have learned to brisa that it's not, we could have learned to brisa that it's Beis Hillel's opinion. But Rabashi, that was Rabbi Yosef wanted to say. But Rabashi and Rabbi Yosef tells us the brisa is Beis Shammai. Now you have a lot of explaining to do. This is going to be a tough one to get out of. The Gemara says, Hasam menach ha'ara. The answer is that you're only not allowed, according to Beis Shammai, to have your utensils do work on Shabbos, even in a passive way, when it's your utensils. But your land is allowed to do work on Shabbos. So the incense and the sulfur, you put it directly on the ground. So you don't have your utensils doing work. It's an interesting answer. Maybe that's why your grass can grow, or I don't know. The Gemara says, Gigis, Viner, Ukadeira, Ushpud. We have some other issues here. How do you make beer? You have to soak it for a few days, maybe 8 days at least. How do you have a candle burning? How do you put a pot on the fire? And how do you put a spit in the oven for even the Korban Pesach? How do you do anything if, according to Beis Shammai, your utensils are not allowed to do work even passively? So how do you have anything, any of these things happening over Shabbos? The Gemara answers, my time Beis Shammai, the Gemara answers, the mafkir afkure. You were mafkiret. You made it ownerless. Okay, there's some problems with this. How do you make it ownerless? Do you make it ownerless in front of 3 people? Or is it automatically ownerless? Okay. Mantan l'hadatan rabbanan. Who is the author of the following brisa? It says, Leitamali isha kedera asasius v'turmasim. We have these types of beans that they need to be cooked, these legumes, they need to be cooked a lot of times or for a very long time. So we have a brisa that says a person should not put up a pot of these beans. It's chalent. Put it up Erev Shabbos, close to dark. because it's going to be finished on Shabbos. And you have your food cooking on Shabbos. It's not allowed, according to this opinion. Vim nasnan, and if you did put them up, you're not allowed to eat it on Shabbos, for sure not. But because it was cooked on Shabbos, according to this opinion, your utensils need to rest. But even after Shabbos, we also have a concern that if you'll be allowed to eat it after Shabbos, then you may put it up every week before Shabbos and say, I'm having this, I can't eat it on Shabbos, but we can eat it after Shabbos. So they made a decree that after Shabbos, you have to wait the amount of time that you gained by putting it up before Shabbos. So you have to wait the amount of time it takes to cook. That way you don't even gain time by doing this. It's called b'chtei sheyasu, the amount of time it takes to make it. Ki yaitzi by similarly, lo yimali nachtem chavos shel mayim v'yaniach l'teichataner of Shabbos. You put up a pot of hot water. You can't fill it up. The baker can't fill up a barrel of water and put it in his tanner, in his oven, erev Shabbos simchat shecha, that he should have warm water, maybe for after Shabbos. V'im asakain, if he does it, he has to wait after Shabbos, the amount of time it takes for that water to come to that temperature. Lema Beishami v'loy Beisilel. It's obviously Beishamai's opinion, not Beisilel, because Beishamai is the one that says that your utensils need to rest and they can't even do work even if it's passive. The Gemara says, not necessarily. Not necessarily. It could be Afilu Tema Beisilel. These cases could even be Beisilel. Why? When it comes to cooking, we have a different rule. Even though Beis Hillel holds, according to the way we're learning, that Shvisas Kelim, your utensils are allowed to do work on Shabbos, even if it's an action. That's what we're learning in Rabbi Shirabasi. Beis Hillel holds your utensils could do whatever work, anything you can put on any machine before Shabbos and let it run. If it's making noises, that would be a problem because that would be like grinding the flour. But otherwise, it doesn't matter. That's where we're holding here. But you can't put anything on a fire. And if you do, then after Shabbos, you have to wait. Why? Because there's a concern you might end up stoking the coals. It's a gzeira. Might go over to the fire like the men are at the barbecue. They keep twisting it into, they're always very hands-on at the thing that you're turning it. So, thank you. That's how cooking was back then. You didn't just you had real coals there, so you would always be active on it to keep pushing things around. That's a problem on Shabbos because when you stoke the coals, you're creating certain coals to flare up and certain ones to go out. It's a double malacha. It's extinguishing and burning. Ihachi, if that's the case, that there's a problem of stoking coals, anything that with coals you might end up adjusting, mugmar v'gafris nami ligzer. There should be a problem with burning the incense and sulfur. That's also a problem. So you don't see it so much, but the pipes, people, when you smoke the pipe, they were always active. There was always doing something to it. So that should be a problem. What's the problem? Over there, you put it up before Shabbos. You just leave it. You leave it under the wardrobe or whatever. It's going to make all the clothing smell, but you may go over and do some adjustments. The Gemara says, "Hasam le'machtilo." Over there, you're not going to stoke the coals. The machti, if you will, salaklu b'kutcha v'kashilu. Over there, you need just the amount that's coming out of the incense. If you're going to play with the coals, then you're going to end up getting smoke also. So you don't play with the coals over there. It's only when you're cooking that you play with the coals. Unin shel pishtan nami ligzer. Why did Beis Hillel say in the Mishnah that you're allowed to take the flax and you want to turn it white? You put it in the oven and you're allowed to put it in before Shabbos. It's going into an oven. Oven has coals. Maybe you're going to adjust the coals. The Gemara says, "Hasam kiven the kasher luzikale megalalei." Over there, the air should not get in contact with it until it reaches its right color. Then whatever chemical reactions are taking place, that takes place in the oven. You don't want to open the oven until it's ready. Basil said you're allowed to put wool inside a vat that has the dye in it, and you put it in before Shabbos, and the whole Shabbos the dye gets absorbed in the wool. But there's a problem. It's done with heat. You may end up stoking the coals. Amar Shmuel, b'yoyra akura. We're talking about where it's not on the fire. You're right, if it would be on the fire, it would be a problem. But you didn't say in the Mishnah it's on the fire, it's not on the fire. And therefore, that's not the problem. You have another issue. Other issue is that besides for stoking the coals to increase the heat, you also have stirring the pot causes the cooking to take place quicker. It assists in the cooking. So when you stir the pot, that's also a malacha. It's not a malacha of extinguishing or burning, but it's a malacha of cooking. And you're causing this to cook by stirring it. That's why you have to be careful if something isn't done. If you take something out of in general, we don't stir the food on Shabbos, but it could be a deraisa. If someone tries to take something Friday night from the cholent or something, we probably can't even put the cover back down if it's not done. But if you would stir it, that would be assisting in the cooking. If it wasn't ready, that would be mevashel, that would be cooking mamish. It's a problem Friday night. Okay, the Bachrim take in yeshiva, they take cholent sometimes Friday night. They have to be careful with this. If it's not totally ready, so then they take it off, they put it back on. You can't even put it back on, but you can't stir it. Maybe he's going to stir it. You're telling me that this vat with the ink, with the dye, is off the fire, so you have no problem of stoking the coals, and that's why Basil allows it, but you may stir it. The Gemara answers, Bakura v'tucha. We've resolved that. It's not only is it off the coals, but it's also sealed. They used to seal the top of the pot. We don't have this today, except if you have a pressure cooker. They used to seal with they would actually use sometimes a dough, and they would take a dough and just put it around to keep the heat in, to keep the moisture in, whatever it was. So this was sealed, so you're not going to open it up to stir it. Okay, now the Gemara says, okay, we've resolved all of those issues. Now that we've come up with this, that the problem on Shabbos, on Erev Shabbos, of putting things on the fire, and of putting things on the fire, is that you may end up stoking the coals to get it to cook faster Friday night. So if that's the case, if that's our issue, so if I have a pot of raw meat, Shari Lanuchi Erev Shabbos, that you are allowed to put on Erev Shabbos, Imcha Shecha, before it gets dark, Bitanura, in the oven. My time, but what's the reason? Because it's not going to be ready anyway. The meat gets cooked very slow. And they have these meats, they cook for, 60 hours or something. So they put it on the fire and they just leave it. They know it's not going to be ready tonight. It'll be ready tomorrow afternoon. So if that's the case, no one's going to go and stoke the coals to work with it. It's something that you just put in and you just leave it there. So that should be allowed even Erev Shabbos. Even Erev Shabbos, even though it's not going to be ready, specifically because it's not going to be ready. So no one's going to adjust it. Now the Gemara says something else. A bushel shaper. Let's say something is cooked already, so already well done. A bushel, shaper dummy, I'm sorry. A bushel, if it's totally cooked, that's acceptable, Erev Shabbos. you can leave it on the fire because it's already done. What are you going to do? You'll burn it if you stoke the coals. You don't touch it anymore until you take it off. Bashal v'loy bashal. Let's say it's not cooked. That's also, that's a real problem. But let's say you take a piece of raw meat right before Shabbos and you throw it in. Now it takes a little bit of time for it to get done, so you're going to leave it. That's also shaper dami. You've like kosherized your pot by putting in a piece of raw meat. That now you can leave it Erev Shabbos without a concern of chitui, that you're going to stoke it, because it's going to take a long time for it to get ready. And now that we've said that you won't even open up the pot, if the air is not good for the cooking, you have to keep it closed. So, hai bisra de gadia. If you have meat from a young goat, a kid, I don't know what it's called. What's a goat? Whatever. Goat meat. Visharik, and it's sealed. Shaper dummy. That's not a problem. You're not going to stoke the coals. And you're not going to open it up because it's sharik is sealed. You're not going to stoke it. You're not going to open it up. It's not a problem. It's not a pot. It's in the oven, but you actually sealed off the whole oven. Why? Because the air probably makes the meat not as soft. So you want to keep it closed. So that would be okay Erev Shabbos. The barcha. Let's say it's an older animal. It's a ram, and over there the air doesn't affect it. And over there you could open up. V'lei sharik. It's not sealed. That's also for sure. That's for sure a problem. Okay. The gadia v'lei sharik. If it's a goat, it means a young animal, but it's not sealed. So now we're getting like these middle things. The barcha v'sharik, or if it's an older animal, a ram, and it is sealed, so there's two qualifications here. One is that you don't want to open it up because the air isn't good for it. The other qualification is it's sealed also. Let's say you only have one. It's older, so the air is fine for it, but it's sealed. Or it's a young one where the air is not good for it, but it's not sealed. So that's a machlekes. Ravashi says that it's permissible. Rabbi Yomi midifti aser. Rabbi Yomi says that it's aser. Well, Ravashi d'shari. According to Ravashi, that says that it's permissible. Vatanan, but we have it's a Mishnah. It says Vatanya. Vatanan is supposed to be ein tzelim basar batzal lebeya elakadeshi tzil mibaydiyim. It says you can't roast meat, batzal, onion, and an egg unless it's going to be ready by day. So, what do you mean? According to Ravashi, there were ways that was permissible. The Gemara answers, 1 second. It doesn't tell you what type of meat that was. Hasam de barcha v'lei sharik. That's not a problem. That was a ram, and the oven wasn't sealed. So you have a problem. You're going to stoke it. Stoke the coals. Otherwise, it would be permissible. If it was sealed, even if it was a ram, it was fine. Ikadamri, others say differently. The gadia, if it's a young animal, bein de sharik, bein le sharik, shaper dami, everyone agrees that it's fine. You're not going to open up, even if it's not sealed, the oven. And the barcha, nami, if it's a ram, an older animal, visharik, and it's sealed, shaper dami, that's also fine. Ki pligid the barcha v'le sharik. The whole machlekes is about a ram when it's not sealed. The Ravashi Shari, this opinion is much more lenient. Even over here, Ravashi says that it's permissible. Rabbi Yirmiyah midifti aser, Rabbi Yirmiyah says that it's not good. I can't see. What is that? Okay. Ula Ravashi, the Shari, and according to Ravashi, that says that it's permissible. We almost don't have any case where it's prohibited. Why do we have a Mishnah that says that it's prohibited? According to Rav Ashi, even meat of a ram, even when it's not sealed, is permissible. Why does the Mishnah say that it's prohibited? The Gemara says, Hasam bebisra agumri. Over there, the meat was directly on the coals. That's a problem. Over there, you're always ready to turn it over. That's like the grill where it's like close to the coals. Over there, you have to keep adjusting it. That's a concern. Otherwise, it's not a problem. Amar Ravina. Ravina says, Haikra chaya shapidami. This raw kra is a gourd. That's also fine. Given the kashal yizika kibisr de gadidami. Since the air is not good for it, the wind is not good for it, so it's considered like the meat of a kid, of a young goat, and you're not going to stoke the coals. That's the end of this Gemara. And we concluded that Bishama is of the opinion that you need shvisas, your kalim need to rest, with the exception of if it's on the ground. And Beis Hillel that holds that you don't need your kalim to rest, you still have a concern of stoking the coals unless you do away with that by either raw meat or things that are sealed. Beishamai said in the Mishnah that you can't sell to a non-Jew items right before Shabbos unless he's going to reach his place before Shabbos. You don't want him walking out of your area on Shabbos with these items. What's the concern? The concern is that right now he's buying it, but it's very possible that he's borrowing it or something like that. And you may end up saying, well, he may ask for it Erev Shabbos, and you'll send it to him with your messenger, Erev Shabbos, a non-Jewish messenger or whatever. And that would be a problem for you. You're not allowed to have someone doing work for you on Shabbos. So it goes like this. A person cannot sell an item to a non-Jew. Can't lend him. Can't loan him. Can't give him a gift. Unless the non-Jew will reach his house Erev Shabbos. In other words, enough time on Friday afternoon. He only has to reach, according to Beis Hillel, near the wall. That's the wall of the city. Rabbi Kiva says no. He has to just leave your house. He has to leave the house of the Jew before Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda says, we had him earlier today. We were discussing kneading. Rabbi Kiva is not arguing on Beis Hillel. Rabbi Kiva is explaining Beis Hillel. Rabbi Kiva is just explaining that when the person said that he needs to get close to the wall, that's not really what Beis Hillel held. Beis Hillel holds that he just needs to leave your house before Shabbos. Once he's left your house before Shabbos, then we don't have any concern about what you sold him. You know, so you can make a sale Friday afternoon as long as he's out of the door before Shkia. Tanan Rabbanan was taught in a brisa. Bishama is of the opinion that you have to destroy your chametz before Pesach. Not that you don't own it. You have to destroy it. You can only sell chametz to a guy before Pesach. This is not the type of sale where you're going to buy it back after Pesach. We're not dealing with that trick. But here we're talking about that you're actually making a sale because you have a store. You're selling, or you don't have a store. You're just selling whatever it is, grain or whatever. So you're selling it to a non-Jew. It has to be able to be finished, to be consumed before Pesach. Different Beis Shammai. You have to, because that chametz is yours, and you have an obligation to destroy it. If you're allowed to eat it, you can sell it. That's Beisil's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kutach habavli, b'chol minik kutach, asalim kalam yom kedem Pesach. He says that you have these types of dips that are made with sour milk and breadcrumbs. He says they take a long time to eat. So you can't sell it to a non-Jew 30 days before Pesach. It's not going to be finished. He's following Beis Shammai's opinion that says it needs to be consumed. He says those are examples of items that will not be finished before Pesach. They take too long to eat. And why 30 days? Because the laws of Pesach, your obligation to destroy your chametz, takes place from 30 days before Pesach. Before that, you don't have to think about the laws of Pesach. But from 30 days before Pesach, you have to start being concerned about this, that maybe your chametz won't get destroyed, and this you have to make sure that during that time you don't sell it to a non-Jew that's not going to consume it. Yeah, let me unmute.
I just did. What is the basis for Beis Shammai's opinion?
About
Not
Pesach
selling.
or about Shabbos?
If it's sold, it's sold. Why is it your business how long someone takes to consume it? It's not yours.
Oh, so Beis Shammai holds that you have an obligation, nothing to do with your ownership. You have an obligation of destroying your chametz, and you're not destroying it.